I think I really enjoy that so much of the comedy is, I don't know if this is a correct word. It's somewhat subtle. Like it just kind of comes through where like it's like they're not pausing for a punchline, at least for like the parts that I really enjoyed.
Welcome to Camp Counselors, a more butter show where we talk about a wide variety of campy movies, the best of them, the worst of them, and I am your host, Amanda the Jedi, with, as always, so far, until I get the pleasure of talking to Kennie JD, we got Mista GG.
Yeah, I'll get out of here soon. Don't worry, guys. But yes, I'm Mr. GG. Hello, hi. How's everyone doing? Please make sure to subscribe and follow the show on Spotify. It really helps grow this awesome community. By the way, the show's charting in the top 50 TV and film podcasts on Spotify. So keep leaving 5-star reviews so we can keep moving up to that #1 spot. Really appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. And today we are talking about another cult classic, a 1980s cult classic, space opera, Flash Gordon. And I feel like there is a lot to talk about around Flash Gordon, even just having watched it. Some of you may be very familiar with it. Others may have never heard it, but there's a really good chance that some of your favorite or liked directors are big fans of this movie. So Mike, have you ever seen Flash Gordon? What's your impression here?
The first time I saw Flash Gordon was like 2 hours ago. So first impressions, I like it. I enjoyed my watch. I will say so.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in like 10 years. And the first time I saw it was with like my best friends in my like childhood best friends, like parents' basement. We were drinking. Like, this makes it sound like I saw it when I was a little kid, but like I was not. I was an adult legally
That's what
drinking.
I was picturing the way you said it.
I know, in my best friend's basement. No, he hadn't moved out yet. He had moved his room down to the basement. But we just had a bunch of friends watching Flash Gordon on his TV because he said it was the best thing ever. And this is like the kind of friend that he'll say something's the best thing ever, and then it sucks, or he just explains it so terribly that you think it's a completely different type of thing. Like, I thought that Breaking Bad was a comedy the way he described it to me. So when I started watching Breaking Bad, I was like, homie, what is this? So we were like, okay, yeah, sure, Sean, Flash Gordon. And it was hilarious. And I just didn't know if it was like the combination of watching it with a group of friends, being drunk. But no, I think that, barring a couple of issues that are just time, like things were different, I think, yeah, this is a very solid, campy movie that's like it's very intentional on what it's doing. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just held up pretty well. I mean, you said what, 1980?
1980.
Yeah, this movie's held up incredibly well. I had no idea what the fuck to expect because you suggested this. You were like, yeah, Flash Gordon. I was like, I don't know why that sounds familiar in my head. I'm guaranteed, obviously I've heard it in passing, I'm sure in other media too, but
yeah,
watching it, I was like, I thought it was going to be super, super like, well, I mean, it kind of is. It's goofy as shit, right?
It is.
But I was expecting like comedically bad goofy, but I was like, I'm into this though. And like, I want the good guys to win. And it's like kind of intense because of the fucking, the main theme, which is, what's it called? Falling Queen by Queen? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, by Queen. Yeah, that's the other thing. The soundtrack for this movie is all by Queen. So
good. So intense. Anytime that like, Falling Queen theme played, I was like, yeah, I'm into this. I'm like turning up the volume and shit. It's so dumb. It's so cheesy, but I love this movie. This was great. I wish I would have watched it fucking hammered.
I know, right? That's what I mean. So it's like it's already good, but then like being drunk just elevates it. And like being around friends just elevates it. It's not one of those ones, because so many times I watch movies and I'm like, if I had been with a group of friends drunk, I probably would have had an even better time, or I would have had a really good time. This is like, no, this stands up. We're just heightening it. We're just making it bigger and bigger. And it is infamous in a lot of ways, because what you might technically remember it from, have you ever seen Ted?
I have
Teddy
seen
Bear?
Ted, yeah.
So there's a scene where Sam Jones, the guy who plays Flash Gordon, shows up because they're obsessed with the character Flash Gordon, like Ted and Mark Wahlberg's character. And then he like shows up to a party And like this is where it kind of gets a little iffy because I guess Seth MacFarlane, that's his name, right? The guy who makes
Family Guy, yeah.
Family Guy. He said he was inspired by Flash Gordon to like get into making stuff. So like Family Guy is technically because of Flash Gordon. Like that's why it exists, kind of.
Nice.
But there have been in recent years, obviously. So the main villain, his name is Ming the Merciless, and he's basically just kind of like this. It's all based on like these comic strips from like the 1930s, and he looks like the Fu Manchu. It's kind of the thing. He's like a caricature play on that. So like in recent years, they've had to pull the Disney, and before the movie plays on streaming services, they have to be like, there might be some issues of racial insensitivity with this. Even though Ming the Merciless is played by a Swedish man.
It's played by Max von Sydow.
I know, but I think it's because but in their minds, it's like, yeah, but in those 1930s comics, this would have been a caricature for like
evil
Asian invaders, like evil Asian invaders.
Oh, okay.
So it might be insensitive. So that's the whole issue. And a lot of people are like, well, no, like that's not necessarily what I get from the movie. It's not like he tries to put on like a fake accent or something.
This isn't like The Last Samurai, Tom Cruise or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, sure, put the warning on screen, whatever. But the issue is that in Ted, homie's drunk, and there's the guy who is like, stop having the party, and it's like this like Asian stereotype dude holding a duck, and then Sam Jones is like, Ming, and that's when he yells like death to Ming and goes to tackle this dude in the Ted movie. So it's like clearly Seth MacFarlane got that impression off of the character.
He went all into that. That's his fault. It's Seth's fault. Okay, so clearly,
exactly.
I watched Ted and I enjoyed Ted, but clearly that part I was just like, I don't know who the fuck Flash Gordon is.
Yeah, exactly. And you wouldn't. And it's one of those things that you're just kind of like, what is this man reacting to? And it's like, oh, because Flash Gordon's a character. But I hadn't, like, I think I probably would have watched it like, maybe, it probably would have been like right after Ted, maybe a year or something after Ted came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's like
maybe I had seen it before Ted.
That's like most Seth MacFarlane media, especially Family Guy. Like, if you just don't get the reference, you don't get the reference because he's just going to go all into it.
Exactly. But yeah, so then I know that like Edgar Wright is also a huge fan. Like, basically, a bunch of your favorite directors love Flash Gordon.
And that should say a lot. Yeah. It's a great movie. I really enjoyed it. Even like, I tried to, like, obviously there's silly moments because I'm sitting here trying to think of cons. Do you have any that come to mind quickly?
I think that it might be a little bit too long in areas and then like maybe wraps up too fast. Like that might be because it's kind of like, they're like, oh, we saved the earth. And then it's done.
I didn't understand that with the fucking little like floating robot. I was like, oh, they're going to destroy him. And then he like congratulates him. And then he just like hop steps up with like his feet kicked back. And I was like,
he's like, yeah.
Oh, all right. Sure. That's fine.
Yeah. I don't get it. But yeah, just I guess just to set the tone for people who are like, I don't know what the fuck
you're talking about.
Flash Gordon is. Yeah, we just kind of dove right in there. But Flash Gordon is a football player for the New York Jets, I think. The New York something.
He's the quarterback for the New York Jets, yeah.
He's the quarterback for the New York Jets. I just love in the beginning, though. Like, he goes back and he's like, hi, my name's Flash. And the girl's like, I know. But, like, his shirt, it just says Flash. It just says Flash on the shirt. But, so, like, basically what happens is that, like, Ming the Merciless becomes aware of Earth because of some studies that a scientist is doing because he thinks that, like, the moon is moving too close to Earth, which is literally, like, the plot of Moonfall. Mm-hmm. Which just came out, which I have to wonder, did they come up with the plot for Moonfall from Flash Gordon? I have to look into that. Mm-hmm. But then, like, it just basically, they get pulled into this thing where the scientist tricks them on board the spaceship to help him with his plan, and then they get kidnapped by Ming and then get pulled into some huge, like, intergalactic battle to, like, free all these people who are being, like, oppressed or, like, overlorded by this one grand dictator. And they put a shocking amount in this movie. You've got, like, different princes. You've got different, like, species of people, like, different types of aliens. Like, I'm a big fan of the Hawkmen. They're pretty cool.
Great. The leader of the Hawkmen is great.
Yeah, he's great. That's, like, I have one note that is just kind of like, my favorite guy is bearded wingman. Like,
he has such good energy. I love his lines.
Yeah.
There's one line where, like, when they're going to battle, I think Flash is doing some crazy shit, and then the bearded wingman, I think it says like, well, who wants to live forever? And then he like starts diving down.
Yeah.
But in his voice, he just bellows it out with his like fucking pearly white smile. I'm like,
yeah, he's got one of those big like,
yeah, one of those. It's I don't know. There's so many things to like about this movie, and I think like just like the inner fucking dweeb in me just enjoys having like all these sets and all these like armies or groups just all together in one area. They all secretly hate each other and want to fucking overthrow each other. I don't know. There's just so much more was put into this than I initially thought going into it. I was like, there's a lot, like there's so much effort put in this.
Yeah. And it's like, it's basically, originally there's been like a handful of different attempts to like bring this to some kind of like either like serial like on-screen thing from those comic strips. But then this one guy had the rights from the 1960s. But in the 70s, George Lucas tried to get the rights to make this movie. And then he couldn't get the rights, so he made Star Wars. Oh. So like one could say that Star Wars, which is a space opera, only exists because of Flash Gordon and like not being able to make it. Because like, do you think... And I don't know, would Star Wars have had as much of like an impact if he had already made something like Flash Gordon? Would he have even bothered making Star Wars?
That's one of those weird ass, just like, oh, this didn't work out, so we got this fucking immense franchise that is fucking like a like pioneer culture. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's this movie is just really weird in that like people forget about it, even though it's a cult classic. It's inspired a bunch of stuff in sci-fi. It has its issues, like every woman in this movie is just fawning over Flash, just like trying to like throw themselves at him and be like, put a baby in me, Flash, you know, like all of this stuff. But it's just so good and enjoyable, but then it's almost like one of those ones that it's like, you know, when you hear bands that are all like, this is the band that your favorite band likes that like you don't know about, like this is the movie your favorite sci-fi director loves that you just haven't watched yet.
And I definitely agree with that. When I was watching it, I kind of got like, I got the vibe where it's kind of like The Princess Bride, but in space. And I was like, I love this because I love The Princess Bride. That's a great movie.
Same.
And then just having this, I don't know, man. I feel like I've never been, I mean, I've been rarely pleasantly surprised on blind watches like this, especially for like old cult classics or something like that. Like, I mean, recently we watched Leprechaun. Not the same experience. Just want to throw that out there.
13 years did nothing for the cinematic experience for Leprechaun.
But I love that Max von Sydow plays Ming. R.I.P. Max von Sydow. I love Max von Sydow in The Exorcist.
He's great.
He was in Game of Thrones. He's such a good actor, even for like what appears to be such a goofy fucking character. I was like, he stays on point though. Like it's goofy, but like he's with it.
Yeah, he's goofy, but also like imposing. Like he's so confident. He's all like, yeah, I'm fucking hot shit. I'm gonna kill you and take your bitch. Like that's what's gonna happen here today, you know? And like there's like Timothy Dalton is in this. Is one of the other princes.
Is he Prince Baron?
He's one of the Bond. Yeah, Prince Baron. Yeah, Prince Baron. I always forget him. Yeah, because the other ones. Yeah, the green people. Okay, yeah. That's Timothy Dalton. So like James Bond, and it's just, I don't know. It's just so enjoyable. Like it's just like I didn't know how you were gonna take it, and I hadn't seen it in so long that I was like, maybe I'm crazy. Like maybe this was only good because I was drunk. It was a moment in time. I was with my friends, but like no, there's like real charm and camp to this. Like at one point they're fighting. He's fighting Timothy Dalton, Prince Baron at the end at one point. And, you know, it's like this, it's the fight to the death. But then girl comes in at the side. It's like, Flash, I love you, but we only have 14 hours to save the Earth. And it's basically just kind of like,
hello. I
know you're getting like bullwhipped to shit here, but like, stop fucking around, pal.
This is also why he's being like literally strangled to death.
Yeah, like literally, yeah, like the whip's right around his neck, and then she comes in with like, Flash. Like I love watching you frolic around with your boys, but
I think I really enjoy that so much of the comedy is, I don't know if this is a correct word. It's somewhat subtle. Like it just kind of comes through where like they're not pausing for a punchline, at least for like the parts that I really enjoyed. Like when they do telepathy in a weird way. They have like telepathy machines where they speak to each other. And while Flash is like reaching out to Dale, I think her name is. Yeah, he's just talking. He's like, yeah, no, I'm alive. Trust me. Over. It's like he's doing like a walkie-talkie thing, and it's like,
exactly.
And, like, there's no pause. They're not like, all right, now you laugh at the joke. They're just running through the dialogue. I'm like, this is so good. This is so good.
Yeah, it's so good. And there's like deception going on. Like he was supposed to be killed, but like this princess manipulated this dude that wants to be with her to like inject something in his arm to keep him alive. And she's like, oh yeah, I'll meet you at the same place later. Meanwhile, she's like planning to like bop off planet with Flash to start their new life together. There's like, a movie shouldn't be able to have this much like slammed into it. It's got a decent runtime. It's like an hour and 50, but it shouldn't be able to like slam this much into it and still work and be enjoyable. Cause it's like, it's like a space epic. You could imagine that everything that happens in this movie could take place across the trilogy, but it's one. Just one movie, and it's still enjoyable.
Do you have a favorite character in this movie?
I do. I still think. I do think it's like.
Is it Bearded Hawkman?
It's Wing. I think it's Bearded Hawkman. He turns into a little bitch after a bit, but like early on when he's like, oh, we have a challenger that might be able to. Because there's this whole scene where Flash needs to fight people and he's like, oh, I don't know how to do it. And they're like, here, take this egg thing and pretend you're playing football. And then he's like, oh yeah, now I can do this. And like every once in a while, like if somebody goes into the bearded guy's orbit, he'll just like bop them on the head real quick. Like, like I love that shit. How about you? I also like, I don't know why I like Prince Baron, even though he's a little bitch a little bit too. I just like Timothy Dalton in that role. He's very like, yes, I will stand with you now, Flash. It's just very regal.
Yeah.
He's like the Sasuke.
I was hoping he wasn't going to be a cunt near the end because, I mean, he's obviously against him the entire time because he's like, yo, could try to fuck my girl. Not cool, dude. But when he finally got on his side, I was like, all right, I like how this is all coming together here. This is fun stuff. I mean, I like a lot of the characters. Like I said, I love Max von Sydow. I even like his fucking stupid minions, the Squid Game characters with the faces.
Yeah, the ones that get footballed. Yeah, like his like the main guy that gets like when he dies. Sorry, spoiler. It's like his face just oozes out of the mask, like. But he looks like Doctor Doom. It's like they're like, we got Victor Von Doom here. Or like was Victor Von Doom based on this character?
I didn't understand the random gruesomeness that you just mentioned because when he died, it just like randomly cuts to a shot of like a fake tongue hanging out, like just dripping eye,
and his eyes just I was like, that's very graphic for the tone of this movie.
Yeah, that caught me off guard. And the other person who dies, spoilers, which is like another one of his minions, one of the girls, I don't know her name, but she also just melts at one point, and I was like, did I miss something with this? Where like they just I don't know, just evaporate or some shit when they die? I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, it's like that particular species of alien, I guess, or that race of aliens, not species, but like that race of alien just evaporates when they die. Like, I have no idea. It's fun. And it's one of those things like sometimes it's like because I would say that Dale has a lot in common with like Princess Leia as a character, a little bit, just a little bit more like, oh yes, Flash, I'll marry you. But she's still like, she's headstrong. She's a little bit of a badass. The way they've got the whole like hiding around the corners with the blasters, which is very Star Wars. And I'm like, because I know that they finally decided to make the Flash Gordon movie because Star Wars did so well. They're like, shit, it's our space operas are in now. Let's do one of the OGs. We're finally going to make good on the property I've owned for the last like 20 years. Or so did it take like inspiration from some of the stuff it felt Star Wars did well, or did Star Wars just take inspiration because George Lucas couldn't make Flash Gordon? I have no idea because I'm not going back to read comic strips from the 1930s. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's fun. That's what I mean. It's fun to think about though. It's like, where did the influence stop and end between these two things?
Definitely. I think Bearded Hawkman is my favorite character. After jumping around with it, I think there's a lot of enjoyable characters, but I think he brings this energy, and him being one of the leaders of like the two armies we kind of get, well, three armies, I guess, if you're counting the villains as well, that we get familiar with. I just think he brings a lot of energy, because like Flash is like kind of like he like plays it cool mostly, so it's nice to have this just fucking oomph character come in, and he like rides along his side, and they're just boys, like ride or die. He's like, bro, I'm not leaving without you. I'm fucking. And the CG, the green screen of the Hawkmen flying to attack is so just charming to look at, but also sad as hell, because so many of them die, and we see so many of them just get gunned down and just like fucking just like loose body into like, eternal nothing.
It's terrible.
And I'm like, oh man, he's losing all his people right now. This is hard to watch. Like, yo, come on, guys, dive a little faster. We're getting fucked right now.
No, I totally agree, which sucks. And I didn't like, obviously at one point he's kind of like, no man, every man for himself. I'm not sacrificing myself for this fight. But then it's like really wholesome, because like Flash is just like the golden retriever of people. He was like, I'll forgive anyone. I'll save anyone. I'll do anything. So he escapes this explosion on this speeder rocket that he somehow finds, this like space speeder bike. And he's like, calls him right away. And it's just this like wholesome moment of all like, thank you for giving a old bird a second chance or something like that. I'm like, oh my God. And today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jarritos, the all-natural, made with real sugar soda that comes in a glass bottle in a variety of delicious flavors like lime, mango, guava, and the ever-elusive watermelon. So if you want to figure out where to find Jarritos yourself, click the link in the description down below to use their store locator, and stop by Walmart to pick up their Fiesta pack so you can try all the flavors for yourself. Thanks again so much to Jarritos for sponsoring this podcast.
We kind of brought up the cons, right? Because you said like it was kind of like runtime.
There's some runtime issues. Obviously, they're like there's dated issues. There's just issues where it's like things might not fly in today's market, and I can understand how some people would be bothered by certain characters or what characters are supposed to represent. But overall, I think that the positives outweigh those negatives.
Yeah, there's like isn't there like a quasi roofie drink that
there is,
are forced to drink so they can be with Ming, right?
Ming. Yeah, literally. He's like, I'm the merciless. You think I'm gonna have anybody I want whenever I want.
Yeah, so I get that part. Yeah, but like you said, I don't think it's gonna. There's not really a huge amount of focus on it, so I don't think it'll deter your watch at all.
No, it really is just like the main focus of this is that it's just this like intergalactic space opera with like different like species of aliens and like just different basically you're from Earth and then you go to space and find out there's this whole other fucking system going on that is the same as Earth, where people are fighting and different people leading different areas, and it's just like a nice little slice of that. How would you feel if I told you that this was supposed to be a trilogy that didn't happen?
Well, I mean, once again, spoilers if you guys haven't gotten the memo by now. It does end on a cliffhanger, but I just felt like it was a meme. Like, oh, you're just playing into it, right? Because it puts like the question mark, and then it's
question mark. The end.
So, but it was originally supposed to be a trilogy.
Yeah, and I think by the time they would have edited that part in, they knew it probably wasn't going to happen, because something happened between I forget, like something De Laurentiis, whoever the guy who owned the rights to it. I don't think it was the director, but he was the guy who was basically the main producer behind it. Him and Sam Jones apparently had some kind of like irreconcilable feud. Something happened. And it just, obviously you can't have Flash Gordon without Flash Gordon. Like, they didn't want to recast the titular character, who they found on a dating show, by the way. That's how he got cast.
Flash. He
was on a dating show. He was actually a football player. Oh. He was on like one of those like mystery date shows or something like that.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find the show.
I forgot what the like old school one, or like the most classic one where it's one girl and like three guys sat on
and
the
I think
other
that's
side.
what it was. I think
what
it was
the fuck is that show called?
Sam Jones dating show. What was he on?
Man, I'm dog shit for not knowing the name. The Dating Game? That one, right?
The Dating Game.
Yeah,
the dating game. Yeah, and that's like the guy who owned the rights, I'm pretty sure, this something De Laurentiis his wife saw it, was all like, this guy would be perfect. Look at him. He's like an All-American. He's literally a football player. Like, let's go. But apparently it still took 10 months to cast him.
Oh, because they were probably going through a lot of dudes. That's funny. They
he
on
had
him.
to go through.
He had no prior experience, like acting experience. He's just he's good looking and an athlete. He can pull it off.
Yeah. Okay. The producer's named Dino De Laurentiis, I think De Laurentiis or something like that. And apparently they got into a feud.
That's fucking ass.
And that's why there was never another Flash Gordon movie.
Feels fucking bad. That would have been
to the point that I think they had to bring in a different voice actor to do some of like the ADR stuff in post.
So that's why you said when they edited that sequel part, they already knew like there's no coming
They must,
back.
yeah, exactly. They had to have known if they had to bring in a different voice actor to like finish things up. Like they had to know.
That's trash.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
But now that you bring up the dating game thing and that he was like an athlete, I feel like now that just helps him. Honestly, Flash's character in the movie, I think that just helps him because like that's what he is. He's supposed to be just like the all-American dude. That's what he's not supposed to be anything else. He's just the guy, but he has the humanity in space.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And he just randomly knows a lot. Like when things start going bad on the plane on Earth, he's all like, yeah, turbulence is just when like the wind levels go above the clouds. And he's about to explain to her like the physics of turbulence in the 1980s. Mm-hmm. But then it's actually an alien invasion. So
yeah, it's just hot hail raining from above.
Hot hail. That is, there's a moment where you're like, where is this movie going? Because the screen is just flashing hot hail. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay.
I was like,
sure.
I don't know what I'm going to see, but I'm ready for it.
Yeah, they're like, the graphics have not come along enough to show a visual representation of hot hail.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to put it on screen. They went with a fucking Velocipaster method of.
I think the closest thing we see to it is just like a red rock on the floor.
Yeah.
But just one. That the scientist looks at and he's like, I forgot what he calls it, but yeah, that's basically it. But overall, man, I was with it. I'm really glad you suggested this.
I'm glad. I was like, because I feel like the last couple of times I've unintentionally dominated the conversation. Mm-hmm. Because it was stuff like I'm intimately knowledgeable about.
Twilight.
So I was like, Twilight, Velocipaster. I didn't know nothing about the Leprechaun. So I was like, let's do something, And then I was like, let's just do something that I at least know, but I have not watched in so long that I feel like I need to refresh my memory on whether or not this is actually enjoyable. Mm-hmm. And it is, because this is one like this is just enjoyable to watch for the type of movie it is. It's like one of those intentional campy movies and knew what it was doing. And I think it did it well. It like got Queen to do the soundtrack. The budget was actually like pretty large at the time. I'm seeing anywhere from like 20 to 35 mil.
Makes sense for everything
which was like quite a bit. Yeah, it was quite a bit in the 80s. Like that was more, I think if it's the 35 million, that's actually more than Empire Strikes Back ended up on after they had to keep upping the Empire Strikes Back
Damn.
budget. So like they were working with a lot. And you can see it, like when the special effects work, they work, and other times it just adds to the charm, Yeah,
I mean, because a lot of it ends up being well, the majority of the movie ends up being in space. So when you see people travel through space, or you see the Hawkmen flying, or they capture people, see, and they're just
so bad,
just still, just not really moving too much. But it's like, oh yeah, they're gliding right now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, when they're using that like the telepathy machine over their heads. When they're far out, it doesn't look too bad, but there's a couple of close-up shots where they're like really close. Like it's so easy to tell that their heads are just not on anything other than like a green screen. Yeah. And then they've just put this like ridiculous background behind them because they've made no attempt to like level out the lighting.
Yeah.
But it just adds to things.
Yeah, it's the most like crazy, hazy looking space. I didn't really think about it until now, but just like completely, it's just like a fucking, just a busted nut of colors just randomly all over. And it's like, this is, I didn't really think about it until now till you said it.
Yeah, because it is. Because you're like, oh, that's this planet, but it's like all haphazard and ice chunk. It looks like it's just a floating ice chunk in a sea of like cotton candy skies, but not in the way that like our actual skies can look like cotton candy. It's just like ridiculous.
Yeah, pretty much.
But It is fun. I know that for the scene that they were doing with like Timothy Dalton and him when they're fighting, when it's the whole like we only have 14 hours to save the Earth. Apparently that platform was actually like 25 to 30 feet off the ground, I think, or meters. Yeah, not meters. It would have to be feet. And there were just boxes on the bottom. They just kept falling off and like landing in boxes.
Just cardboard boxes.
He's like, it was kind of. Apparently, that's what he made it sound like. It had to be like some kind of stunt box or something. But like he said, that's not really where they got hurt. It was more just trying to avoid the bullwhip actually hitting you in the eye. So like they were actually like using whips to like go back and forth.
Oh, dude, they must have swung that damn thing like 40 times during that fight. And that's excluding any outtakes they have.
That's what I'm saying. I just saw an interview with Sam Jones where he was all like, yeah, like that was like really fun. But yeah, we just kept falling off of this platform and it wasn't too bad. But I'm like, so that's why like any of the wide shots, I'm pretty sure that is an actual like bullwhip going at them. And then the close ones, they just kind of use like the sound effects and yeah. It's just,
did he say anything about the spikes? Because that's what worried me. I kept seeing that and I was like, are those real?
I feel like the ones on the outer rim were real because every once in a while some of them wouldn't go back down and know if it was intentional or not. So I feel like they had to be CG for the most part because like there's too many liabilities there.
That's what I was thinking. But I saw them like I kept like trying to pay attention to their movement and I was like, it looks like they're very clearly avoiding them.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just good editing, whatever the fuck, but I was like, it looks like like Flash is literally like wrapping his hand around one and wrapping his hand around another, like careful. That's true. So I was like, okay, we're going for it.
Maybe they were real in certain shots and not real in others.
Maybe that's what it like one where they're not going to be as agile and jumping around. I believe that more.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do you think this ended up on like the rating scale? I don't know if you looked it up at all. Where do you think?
I haven't looked it up, but if I had to guess, Rotten Tomatoes. Those bastards. I would say 85? 85?
For audience or critics?
I would say, man, critics kind of suck, but I think they'll see the power in it. I'll say 85 critic, and I'll say I kind of want to go same, 85. Is that wrong?
You'll be shocked. Fine. You're close. It's 83 for critics.
Okay.
Critics, a handful of them are just kind of like, you know what? I saw what they were going for, but I don't actually think it worked. I thought the comedy was bad, and I laughed at times that I didn't think they wanted me to laugh. And I was like, personally, when I laughed when I didn't think they wanted me to laugh, it just added things. I just liked it more. But audiences, 69%.
Oh, we suck.
A lot of the recent reviews are high. Like a lot of them are good because I feel like most people kind of realize that like you can have a campy movie and have it be enjoyable. And then other people are just kind of like, this is like stupid.
So, do you think it's just one of those things where it's built up to be this very infamous movie, so people are just like expect the highest? Or
I don't know. I almost think it's like, I feel like it's weird because I'm scrolling and most of the recent reviews are all like at least a 3.5 and above, and then you get the odd like 1 star. So I feel like I don't know how far back I'd have to go to start seeing all those like really low
really dove
reviews.
the fucking score.
Yeah, because I do know that like the audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes are weighted like, if anything lower than a 3.5 is considered rotten, whereas like a critic could review something a 2 out of 5 and then still give it a fresh rating if they wanted to. So it's weird. But yeah, I just think it's probably like, I feel like a lot of audiences don't know how to engage with intentional camp. Like things that are supposed to be, and that's fine. Like not everyone's going to find it funny. And some people just don't want to deal with like over the top acting. They want things to feel more like serious or delivered on point. But I just think this nailed the tone that it was going for. And it just like stuck with it the whole way. Everybody committed. Everybody was on board. Like even like if you were supposed to be a goofy character, you were a goofy character the whole time. If you were supposed to be more regal, you were regal the whole time. Like Timothy Dalton took this just as serious as he did James Bond.
Yeah.
You know, like same with Cito. He nailed it. He fucking took it seriously.
Yeah.
And
No. I think you broke that down perfectly. Everyone stuck to their role. There wasn't a random time where like Max von Sydow or Prince Baron just randomly broke character and became this like fucking goofy slapstick asshole. It's just like no, they're just who they were. If they're who they're supposed to be in that universe.
Exactly. And it works so well. But yeah, I don't know if you have any, where do you think, where does your rating fall on the 1 to 10, 1 being the tent on fire and 10 being the tasty, delicious s'more that you could make out of that tent
Well,
fire?
on our beautiful camp counselors scale, knowing what the movie is, knowing what the movie wanted to be, man, I'm feeling kind of like an 8.5, honestly, on this. Maybe more towards 8.5, because
Nice.
I really did enjoy my watch. It was, and this is a movie I would also definitely rewatch. Like, I would love to have this on when I'm like cooking dinner or something. It's just because I feel like it'd be a good movie and shit. Just fucking get drunk too. Why not? I don't know. I think 8.5 for me.
Every once in a while you get like the Queen music just ripping in the background, like
it gets you. It's so good. It's so good.
It's so good. Like even though I hadn't seen it in so long, the flash just burned in my brain forever. I love it. It's so good.
Definitely.
And I think also getting Queen to do your soundtrack in the 80s is like impressive.
Ultimate flex.
It's very
Ultimate
impressive.
flex.
Yeah, it's an ultimate flex. Like, it's so apparently this is like one of the Queen's, like the actual Queen's favorite movies.
That's awesome. That's lit.
I'd have to double fact check that, but I am actually pretty sure that she has literally run into some of the actors and had them like say things like Flash is alive, like like stuff like that. So I'd have to double fact check that, but I'd believe it. I could see it, So I think I'm gonna give it. I feel very comfortable giving it like an 8. I'm real good at like that 8 zone, and I think there are moments where it would go higher depending on like the scenario in which I'm watching it. I think it's I think it's really easy to see why a lot of different directors and creatives really enjoy it, because it does like a lot of these like basic, sci-fi or just basic story elements and brings them right down to their bare bones, but then has it on such a like huge scale that everybody clearly really cared about, which is always nice to tell. So yeah, this is a delicious, tasty s'more. And I would assign it the buttered badge. It is
buttered badge.
I just made it up on the spot. I would personally assign everything that I've covered on the show except the leprechaun the buttered badge, but I'm insane. But this I think is like, this is genuinely good.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah, every movie I've watched on Camp Counselor, Leprechaun's the worst, hands down. Right?
Yeah, it's
Twilight, Velocipaster.
Yeah.
This Flash Gordon.
Leprechaun in this.
I don't know what the fuck else I watched, but
you watched the sushi one.
Dead Sushi. Yeah, I'll take Dead Sushi all day over Leprechaun. Yeah, Leprechaun's by far the worst fucking movie I saw here so far.
Seriously, it's just
it's not even close, dude. There's no like, doesn't match up at all. Dog shit.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where we land on that. But yeah, that is going to do it, I think, for this episode of Camp Counselors. If you guys have seen Flash Gordon, let us know what you think. Did you like fall in love with the style of the aesthetic? Are space operas just not your thing, so you did not vibe with it? Let us know down below. And as always, if you'd like your question answered on Camp Counselors, make sure to leave it in the form of a 5-star review on Spotify. We'll answer it on the next available episode. We filmed 2 of these back to back, so there have been no questions in the last 20 minutes.
We checked.
We checked. But please ask us questions. We'll do a little Q&A segment in here sometime, which are always fun. So make sure to follow More Butter on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and subscribe on YouTube for more of our great faces and Kennie JD's. So thank you so much for listening to the Camp Counselors podcast. And Mike, would you like to take it away with a formal outro there?
Yes, I am Mista GG. And guys, please do not forget to butter your popcorn. Happy camping, guys. Thank you for watching this episode.